For 40 years, one of the world's fastest growing tech powers has been wrestling with a single massive puzzle. It's a puzzle that stands in stark contrast to some of its biggest wins on the world stage. We're going to dive into this incredible national challenge: building a jet engine. I mean, think about it. On one hand, you've got the Indian Space Research Organization, ISRO. They're amazing. They launch satellites for other countries, they've sent missions to the moon and Mars. They're a huge source of national pride. But then, on the other hand, you have this 4-decade-long struggle to build an engine for their own fighter jets. It's really a tale of two completely different stories. And that brings us to the big question, right? How can a nation that builds its own rockets and sends them into deep space fail for over 40 years to get a jet engine right? Well, the answer isn't simple. It's a messy combination of money, global politics, and some physics that will honestly just blow your mind. All right, let's rewind the clock. This whole saga really kicks off back in the late 1980s. The project was called Kaveri, and it was this incredibly ambitious program to create India's very own jet engine. And you have to understand, this wasn't just about a piece of machinery. This was about self-reliance, about India standing on its own 2 feet technologically. But that journey, well, it turned out to be way, way harder than anyone ever imagined. So to really get to the bottom of this, we have to start with the external factors. The story of the Kaveri engine really begins with 2 giant hurdles that were there from day one: a serious lack of cash and a big wall of international sanctions. The money part is, well, just look at these numbers. It's staggering. When India started the Kaveri project with about $50 million US, France was pouring over $1 billion into its M88 engine. And the US, get this, they invested over $100 billion into the F-22's engine program. You're not just showing up to a race with your legs tied, you're showing up to a Formula One race on a bicycle. But, it wasn't just about the money. Back home, political attention was often known more popular short-term schemes instead of long-term, super risky R&D. And then the big one. After India's nuclear tests, the world's tech superpowers basically slammed the door in its face. Sanctions kicked in. Suddenly, it didn't matter how much money you had. India was locked out of the 3 things you absolutely need to build a jet engine: advanced metallurgy, super precise machinery, and the facilities to actually test the thing. But here's the thing. Even if the funding had been limitless, and even if there were no political roadblocks, there's a much, much bigger challenge lurking. We have to look past all that external noise and go deep into the world inside the engine, because that's where the real complexity, the real monster, lives. So this is the question that I'm sure you're thinking. If ISRO can build these massive, powerful rocket engines, why can't the defense guys, DRDO, build a jet engine? I mean, an engine is an engine, right? How different can they be? Yeah, the answer is they're absolutely fundamentally different. A rocket engine is like a world-class sprinter. It's designed for one massive, unbelievably powerful burst for just a few minutes to escape gravity. That's it. A jet engine, it's like an ultra-marathon runner. It has up to 40,000 individual parts, all working in perfect harmony, and it has to do this flawlessly for thousands of hours across thousands of flights. The complexity is just on a whole other level. Okay, so before we get into the crazy challenges, here's a quick jet engine 101. On paper, it sounds pretty simple. First, the engine sucks in a massive amount of air and squeezes it tight. Then you spray fuel into that compressed air and light on fire. Boom! That controlled explosion of hot gas blasts out the back, spinning a turbine on its way out. That turbine is connected to the front, which keeps the whole cycle going. And hey, for an extra boost, you can just dump more fuel into the exhaust. That's your afterburner. Sounds simple in theory, right? Well, it's almost impossible in practice. And that brings us to what I like to call the impossible challenges. Seriously, these aren't just engineering problems. These are flat-out battles against the laws of physics and material science. The first number you need to wrap your head around is this one: 1,700 degrees Celsius. That is the temperature inside the engine's combustion chamber. That's hotter than lava flowing from a volcano. Now for the second number, 1,300 degrees Celsius. This is the temperature at which the special metal alloys used to make the turbine blades melt. Those are the blades sitting right in the middle of that 1,700-degree firestorm. So let that sink in for a second. How on earth does a metal part not just survive, but spin at over 10,000 times a minute in an environment that is 400 degrees hotter, than the temperature required to turn it into a puddle of liquid metal. It should be impossible. The answer is just pure engineering genius. Okay, so problem number 1, stop the blade from just ripping itself to shreds. See, normal metals are made up of lots of tiny crystals, and the lines where they meet, the grain boundaries, are weak spots. Under these insane forces, the blade would just fail there. The solution? You grow the entire blade as one single perfect metal crystal. No boundaries, no weak points. This single crystal superalloy is insanely hard to make, but it's what gives the blade its brute strength. Okay, so the blade is strong enough not to tear apart. But what about that lava-hot temperature? This is where the real magic happens. First, they paint the blade with a special ceramic thermal coating. But the genius part is inside. The blade is hollow, filled with a maze of tiny, complex air channels. Cooler air from the front of the engine is pumped through these passages, basically creating a personal air conditioning system that cools the blade from the inside out, stopping it from melting. So we've got the brawn, the physics-defying metal. Now we need the brain. It's a little box called FADEC, which stands for Full Authority Digital Engine Control. Think of it as the super advanced computer that manages every single thing the engine does. This FADEC is the maestro of the orchestra. It's controlling fuel flow, engine speed, airflow, pressure, everything. It even talks to the autopilot. It's constantly analyzing data in fractions of a second to get the absolute best performance. And here, right here, is the biggest irony of this whole story. India is a global software superpower. Its engineers and coders are famous all over Silicon Valley. And yet, developing a FADEC system that can compete with the world's best has been one of the toughest roadblocks for the entire Kaveri project. So we've laid out the problems, right? The money, the sanctions, the mind-bending technical challenges. What's the path forward? Well, it looks like the solution isn't just one single thing. It's a complete, top-to-bottom national mission. And it has to start with people. You can't just throw money at this. You have to build an entire ecosystem of talent. Imagine teaching the basics of how a jet engine works in 10th grade, just to get that spark of curiosity going. From there, you create a national talent pool to find and support the brightest kids. Then you back it up with specialized PhD programs and paid internships, so you have a steady pipeline of brilliant engineers who actually want to stay home and solve these epic challenges. Okay, once you have that talent pipeline, you need to give them the tools and the freedom to innovate. That means a national mission just to master making those superalloys. It means adopting a skunkworks model, small, secret, super-empowered teams like the one that built America's stealth fighters. It means pouring money into finally cracking that FADEC problem. And crucially, it means building the world-class testing facilities that India just doesn't have right now. And the final piece of the puzzle? You can't do this alone. This can't be just a government thing. It needs real partnerships between the public sector and private industrial giants like Tata, L&T, and Godrej. It means being smart about joint ventures with global leaders like Rolls-Royce or Safran to get that critical tech transfer. And it even means opening up a public portal where any citizen with a good idea can submit it, making everyone feel like they're part of the mission. Ultimately, when you put it all together, the core message is this. A jet engine isn't just built with money and metal. It's forged in an entire ecosystem of curiosity, of talent, of infrastructure, and of sheer national will. As the saying goes, a nation's strength is forged not just in steel, but in the minds of its people. Which leads us with one final, and I think really powerful question. The Kaveri engine might be quiet right now, but its story is definitely not over. If this kind of national mission, uniting government, industry, universities, everyone, actually takes shape, could the next generation of Indian minds be the ones to finally make it roar?